Hello everyone, welcome back to IMO Reviews. We have something a little bit special for you today. It is a collaboration with my good friend d.movieman, and we are discussing a WTF recommendation that I suggested to him after discussing Mulholland Drive together, and that movie is Predestination. D, how are you?
I am doing great. I am so excited to discuss today's film because I have lots of plenty. But regardless, I'm really happy just to be back. We seem to be really in sync when it comes to this movie thing. So I always enjoy our conversations and the dialogue.
Great minds think alike. And if you'd like to sell your channel to the people, what they can expect from d.movieman, I myself can verify that it is well worth checking out, but hear it from the man himself.
Absolutely. Hey everyone, this is d.movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. That is my tagline, and it is the foundation and the basis of my channel. I'm a huge cinephile, and I'm a fan of cinema. And in addition to just the entertainment of cinema, I recognize the impact of that medium on me as a person in my life throughout the years, and just really understanding how transformative it can be to not only watch a film and have, that imagery just kind of imprinted on you, but also to be able to recall, very specific memories, important memories, being able to just kind of look back and just map out so many things through that medium. And I'm just very grateful for the impact it has had. And on my channel, that's a big part of what I do. I have reviews. I react to certain trailers. I even do the occasional series recap. But a lot of what I do just comes down to just really, diving deeper and just getting into everything that makes film, movies, and cinema really great. So feel free to check me out, and I'll be glad to have you.
No, perfectly said. I quite agree. I appreciate how deeper you do go into cinemas, how you categorize each video and talk about the music and how the cinematography was done. There's plenty of reviewers out there who just say it was good or it was bad. But even me, I can be at fault for that, especially when it's bad. But yes, you are really articulate reviews, really to the point. And I always think you're really fair as well, even to those films that maybe weren't quite so good. You always do a fantastic job of picking out those little moments that were worth mentioning and praising as well. So yes, if you haven't already checked out Dee's channel, I will link it in the description below. Please do check him out. And today we are discussing Predestination from 2014. It stars Ethan Hawke and Sarah Snook, I believe it's pronounced, or Snook, I'm not 100% sure. It is a movie about time travel, but I will let D put it in his best words as to what he thought was going on. Your turn now.
Much like you said about Mulholland Drive, it is difficult to kind of put into words without spoiling, but I will do my best. But it revolves around a top agent in his final assignment. He is having to pursue a criminal that just keeps eluding him for whatever reason. And as he pursues this criminal, we then enter this just like winding maze of time travel, of identity, of love, of sacrifice, and so many other elements as he unravels the truth behind this criminal and what meaning that has for his life as he prepares to retire, if he retires, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, that would definitely be my best synopsis for this film.
Well, you were right. It is a hard film to describe, but I thought you did a terrific job, actually. I don't know if I could have put it better myself without going into those deeper, juicier moments. Did you have any awareness of the film before watching? Because I know it is one of those films that sort of flew under the radar a little bit. Even on my own watch, it was one of those films I just picked out at random at a rental store, and I thought, Ethan Hawke, that would be a safe bet. And it ended up being the insane ride that it was. So... And a lot of people I talk to about it, they haven't seen it or heard about it. So I am curious, is it a well-known movie in the States by any chance?
absolutely not. Yeah, this is not one. So, and to answer your question, like, what was your awareness? Like zero. Goose egg. I had no awareness of this, and unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast. Some films are just kind of doomed to fly under the radar, to be hidden gems. But I think the great thing about hidden gems is that, you know, when they're no longer hidden, you really appreciate just what they have to say and the experience of it. So, although I knew absolutely nothing before your recommendation and you kind of giving it a spotlight, I'm really happy to say that I know it now, and hopefully I can pass it on to some other people now that I've seen it.
Yeah, we'll be the champions of it. And, well, I know it might be quite hard to have expectations going in if you weren't too aware of it, but what were your expectations, if you had any, going into Predestination?
My main expectations were, one, to get a really great performance from Ethan Hawke. My introduction to Ethan Hawke was in Training Day with Denzel Washington.
Oh, yes.
I believe that's 2000 or 2001.
Yeah.
And he is just in such a, and it's hard to say, because it's hard to say who's underrated and who's not. But to me, I feel like, as great of an actor as he is, I don't know if he gets enough acclaim for the, or just kind of like attention for the fact that he's such a great actor.
Yeah.
So that was my one, you know, kind of incentive to watch. And then, of course, you were just talking about how, you know, it opens one way, and then we have this massive twist that happens that completely, you know, shakes you up. You walk away from it like, whoa. So, of course, that's always exciting. However, what I will also say is that what you said was true and not true, because there is a big twist at the end, but no, there are multiple big twists throughout.
Yes,
and you
there
didn't
are.
mention that part, which I'm glad you did, but I didn't see it coming.
No, it's been a while since I've seen it, but now you mention it, yeah, there is more than one. Yeah. What were your thoughts at around the halfway stage? What were your early thoughts into the movie? Were you latching onto it? Were you struggling with it? Because that's one thing I always worry about with this film, and I recommend it to people, is I know there's a lot of talking in it, but hang in there. Just stay with it. I promise it is worthwhile. So I was curious if maybe it was going to be one of those films where you end up a bit not sure about this, or if it managed to keep your attention.
Well, thankfully, and I've said it in plenty of reviews. I think I say it probably a little too much, but I am a huge dialogue person. You know, partly because I've always been a huge reader, but I just think the older I get, and of course I write also, but I think even outside of that, there's just something I recognize now, because I've seen so many films, and I recognize just how impactful writing can be. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, like, it can really pack a punch. So for me, I appreciate dialogue. And I'm also, in real life, you know, any of my friends or even people that I meet, I love having conversations, which is part of why this is so much fun for me.
Yeah.
But I love, you know, just kind of getting insight. And so the fact that it was these two characters just talking, it didn't put me off. Because part of that is because the story that we're hearing is very, you know, shocking, and it's not like, oh, you know, I grew up and, you know, I had a puppy and my mom and dad, you know, were supportive, and, you know, I won the school fair. Like, no. Like, it's something totally unexpected and very bold, especially considering the time period that's being referenced. So yeah, at the halfway point, I was not put off. I was very much invested. What's funny is the first twist I already knew, because I know who Sarah Snook is, although it didn't click at first. I was kind of like, oh. And then, you know, I heard the voice. I was like, okay. And then I looked at the face. I was like, is that? You know, because I watched Succession. And I was like, And so I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's Sarah Snook. And, of course, that was revealed. But still, the backstory really caught me off guard, because that was not a direction I thought we were going to go in. And I mean, you know, we know the world today, so it's not even like it was some, like, you know, in like a bad way or anything negative, or kind of shocking in some salacious way. But I just didn't think that this character would suddenly have this backstory, you know, this space program, and then this other thing happens, and then this other thing happens. So at that point, I was invested, but I was also anxious because I'm like, it's not just about, oh, this has been my life and here we are now. There's this huge overarching story that's still happening, and there are some huge overarching twists that I know that are going to happen. So I was in it, but I was getting very anxious because I was like, oh gosh, something's around the corner. So yeah.
I'm really glad to hear that because that is always my big concern, but that's really reassuring to hear. And I'm glad that you got on with it quite as well as you did. What were the three biggest WTF moments for you? If you need to go into spoiler details, by all means do, because this is a tough one to do without spoiler details.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say that the opening thing completely caught me off guard. I just was not expecting to see something that grisly that soon.
Yeah.
Flames and burning flesh, and my stomach kind of turned a little bit because I was like, "Whoa, we're not easing me into this." You're just like, "Hey, yeah, we're going there," and I kind of had to, pause for a second and, get myself together. I'm like, okay, adjust, and we're back in it. And so then once I saw, Ethan Hawke's face, I was like, okay, now we're getting into the story and we're going to, keep going from there. But just the initial shock of that was definitely a WTF moment that I had to recover from. There is another point where, there was another point where I had a realization about June, because at a certain point when, which is I know kind of odd to say, but when John is telling the story about his former identity, we see June, falling for this guy and having this relationship. But I noticed that they were intentionally not showing him. They weren't showing him. So I was kind of like, okay, so that's for a reason. Like, that is going to circle back around. And I was trying not to rack my brain thinking about who. I try to not think too far ahead because I want to really lean into the shock of it. So I was like, okay, we're going to come back to that, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Because it still didn't click. I'm thinking like, okay, how is this going to, like, what is he going to have to say to convince June and so on and so forth? When he runs into June and I realized we had circled back to that moment, I was
like, it comes out of nowhere, doesn't it?
Like, out of nowhere. And they do it so well. And like I said, maybe other people might have been thinking ahead. I wasn't. I didn't think that we would circle right back around to that moment like that. Yeah. And not only is it, it would have been one thing if they had met each other, but it's like, you're the one who. So yeah, that took me out completely. There are some other ones, but there's no getting around the final twist. Yeah. Because like, there's just no way you could have told me at the beginning of this film that all these people that we saw, with the exception of Noah Taylor's character and maybe another character here or there, you could not have told me that all of these people and all of these identities and all of this was happening through 4 identities in one body, in one continuous loop, happening over and over again. I had to just sit there and just ponder what is life?
Yeah.
What is this existence that we are in? It was that kind of experience. And so you did mention that there was a twist, but it's hard to emphasize what a twist is unless you experience it. You can talk about it, but you have to experience it. So you said it, but I still didn't think I would be sitting there like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah, last twist was a doozy.
I completely agree. When I first watched Predestination, that final twist, and I've been vaping since. I'm a good boy now, but back when I first watched it for the first time, I had to go out for a cigarette. It was just dead silence, me and a cigarette, just putting it together. Like, what the hell did I just watch? I know I liked it, but I don't know if I've actually got the whole picture, so I totally agree with you on that ending. It really it's got a knockout punch for a finish line, doesn't it?
It takes a very complex mind, and it takes someone with a really complex knack for writing and story crafting to make that work.
Yeah.
I've written, I've written and I've read stories, but it would take a lot for me to think about putting these pieces together to
Yeah.
fall in line this way for a story and a film to work. So I mean, kudos.
Time travel is the most terrifying genre to me with writing. I almost, if I get even an inkling of an idea that involves time travel, I'm like, just pop that to the back of your mind. Don't worry about it for now. Tackle something easy. Tackle a child's story, for example. I do have great respect and credit to anyone who can do a sci-fi time travel script and actually nail the landing, because there are so many out there where you pull one thread and the whole thing suddenly very quickly falls apart. So no, I totally agree with you there.
And at one point, he had kind of dropped this little crumb about the dangers of doing this for too long and kind of becoming lost in this profession and the time travel and all that, which also makes you question if because I kind of said it without thinking, like he threw that little crumb out there, but I'm like, maybe he did that on purpose, because then if that thing is always kind of lingering in the back of your mind, like at what point can that then come to fruition? Like,
Yeah.
like it's one thing if no one tells you something, then it might be easier to avoid a certain future. But if someone goes ahead and says this thing, maybe it's intentionally done to create that future. So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy
Yeah.
to imagine that. Kind of the crazy part of time travel, because it can create so many paradoxes and so many loops that it can be so mind-boggling to try to work through.
No, I think you're bang on the money there. That was how I read it as well. I saw it as being this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will. It's the itch in the back of your mind that if you pick at it too long, it's only going to get worse and make the situation worse. By diving deeper into the problem swallows you up whole. Ultimately, what was your final feelings towards the film? Were you positive, negative, somewhere in the middle with it, or, just a bit meh about it?
No, I enjoyed it immensely. One thing I also wanted to say is that, and I can say this about Luke Brand Predestination, because they have a similar look, but cinematography is so layered and diverse, and there are so many different ways to approach cinematography. But I found that they both had this very, I don't know, crisp, kind of polished look.
Yeah.
That I just really enjoyed. I understand it wasn't about that, but I just kept looking like, man, like this looks good.
Yeah.
So I just love the look of the entire thing. And of course, being the period piece fan I am, whenever I see, other eras in time being replicated, 40s, the 70s, and all of that, that's really enjoyable as well. But I love the fact that I was simply invested. Now, granted, I know I have, a higher threshold for a slower development compared to some people. But I even think, kind of taking that, out of the equation, I think that it is just a really well-crafted story. And I actually didn't realize it was as short as it is, because it does all of that, but the runtime is not super stretched out, which it could have been.
Yeah.
But it makes all this in a very short amount of time, and it makes all this happen in a very short amount of time. And although I can appreciate, something being a little bit longer and taking its time, I'm impressed whenever a film can kind of tell its story and wrap it up and, get you out of there really quickly. So
Yeah.
I think that this definitely deserves to be seen by a lot more people. It is definitely a hidden gem. And so for anyone who is watching, I think we both are clear on the fact that more people should be aware of this film and should be watching it.
I couldn't have put it better myself, Bud. You make an excellent point about the runtime as well, because we've discussed quite a lot is going on in this film, but they really do trim the fat. You only get what you need, and there is a lot that you need, but they give it to you in a really nice, sensible fashion that makes sense, and it has an impact with the structuring that you'll get this detail very early on, but it won't make any sense. But by the 45-minute mark, it's going to blow your mind when you put that key in the door and unlock it in your mind. It's. I think that's an excellent point. What would you score it out of 10, or on an A plus, an A minus, a B, anything like that? What would you give it for a score?
I would say for me, this is about like this is A territory. Maybe I want to say, I mean, any like A plus, A minus is just like it's just. I'll just give it an A because I there's nothing I could really say that was wrong with it or bad. There was really nothing that didn't work. And like I said, not only is it a quality film and a well-made film, but I just love the fact that I just love the approach it takes to telling this story, doing it in a short amount of time, and just creating something that is very thought provoking and mind boggling at the same time. So to me, it kind of falls in the category of films, like Looper, like Upgrade, where you have sci-fi, but it is handled in such a unique but tight knit kind of way, and it really does leave an impact on you. Long after it's over, and it does it with elements that we've seen before. So it still manages to stand out. We've seen time travel, we've seen films that handle technology and all this kind of stuff, but you really have to stand out if you're going to tell yet another story about that. And I feel like this, much like those films, does a really awesome job of standing out and distinguishing itself within that genre.
I totally agree with you, Bud. I couldn't have put it better myself. I'm right there with you as well. It's in the A category for me. I don't know if it quite gets the star, but it is in that ballpark, definitely. If it didn't quite knock it out of the park, it hit the fence and bumbled over the other side. Thank you so much for discussing this movie with me. Thank you for taking the time to watch it. I know it's always hard when people say, watch this movie, and more so for us being quote unquote critics. We have people left, right, and centre throwing films at us, and it gets a bit daunting, and you're like, I don't know which one to start with. So I really do appreciate you finding the time to sit down and watch it. I'm really glad you enjoyed it as well. But before we go, would you like to sell your channel one last time? Tell everybody what they can expect from d.movieman. I will link your channel in the description below for everybody to check out.
So, yes, I have a couple of reviews I've knocked out recently. I did my first review short that was requested by a few people. So I was like, let me just go ahead and bite the bullet and go for it. And that review short was for the film Megan, which was quite the experience and quite a unique film for so many reasons. But I enjoyed being able just to kind of give quick, concise thoughts, which was a lot harder than I expected because I'm used to kind of expounding upon my thoughts. But it was fun to have that experience. I'm hoping to do that with a few more films and the occasional series here and there. And I also did an early review for the film Missing. It's a follow-up to 2018 Searching, which I enjoyed immensely. And as far as how I felt about the sequel, you'll just have to tune in and see, whether it lives up, to everything that the first film did, or is it, beneath that? Is it, right on par with that first film? You'll just have to kind of check in and hear my thoughts. But that's what I've put out recently. I'm hoping to dive a bit more into my rankings. I've been trying to do some of this stuff for the longest, but I am hoping to knock out a really special ranking involving Jumanji, and also the nominations for the Cinema Squad, the Rubber Ducky Awards, that will be coming up very soon, which I will be presenting for. I think I'm going to knock out a video where I go through my thoughts on each category, the nominations, and what my choices are. So, so some good stuff coming up. So feel free to check me out and join in.
No, that sounds excellent. There's lots on the horizon, and as I say myself, I can vouch as a subscriber, it's a channel well worth checking out. So please do.